What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are breaking down the Week 8 schedule. We're going to be talking about the teams with the best schedules, the worst schedules, and also the best streamers to help you maximize your games. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. First off, make sure you guys hit that like button and that subscribe button below. Also hit the notification bell as well if you want to be notified when I post a video. It's good for you guys if you want to keep up to date, and also helps the channel out, so feel free to do that. Also, if you're on X/Twitter, make sure you follow me at FIREDUP Fantasy. I'm pretty active on there. A lot of up-to-date information is posted on there, so make sure you follow me or check it out. But to start this video, guys, let's start talking about the teams with the most off nights and the most games. For the teams with the most off nights this week, we have 7 teams on this list. The number 1 team being the Columbus Blue Jackets. They have 4 games on this week, and all of them are off nights: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, so very useful for maximizing your games. We also have the New York Rangers, who have 4 games and 3 off nights. Very solid as well. They also have a very good opponent goals against average, so definitely take a look at some of those Rangers players sitting on your waiver wire. Then we have the Sharks, 4 games and 3 off nights. Not a lot of fantasy relevant Sharks players, but there's about 1 or 2 that I'm going to talk about later, so we'll get into that in a little bit. Then we have a tier break. Basically, the rest of the teams on this list have 4 games but only 2 off nights. Still solid to stream for the entire week, and obviously solid if you have players on these teams, but they're not of the upper echelon like the Blue Jackets and the Rangers. So just to list these off, we have the Boston Bruins, the Colorado Avalanche, the Washington Capitals, and the Buffalo Sabres. Next up, we have the teams with the least amount of games this week. This is basically the teams that only play 2 games this week. We have 2 teams on this list, the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings. The Kings have a little bit of a better schedule than the Oilers because they do play on off nights, Wednesday and Sunday. Oilers have no off nights, Tuesday and Thursday. And the Oilers also have a pretty tough opponent schedule as well. A 2.46 opponent goals against average is pretty tough. So if you have a lot of Oilers players on your team, definitely not ideal. And I mean, the same thing can be said for the Kings. If you have a lot of Kings players, it's going to not help you this week. It might cost you, but it is what it is. Next up, we have the teams with the easiest opponent record. These teams should do pretty good this week in the win column, so you could see their goalies get some wins. We have the Boston Bruins, the New Jersey Devils, the New York Rangers, the St. Louis Blues, and the Winnipeg Jets. Then we have the teams with the hardest opponent record. These teams may struggle to get wins how they normally do. Their goalies might struggle, so be careful if you have goalies on these teams. We have the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Los Angeles Kings. Next up, we have the teams with the highest opponent goals against average. These teams are playing teams that let in a lot of goals, so if you have players on these teams, they might do well this week. We have the Boston Bruins, the St. Louis Blues, the Seattle Kraken, the New York Rangers, and the Winnipeg Jets. Then we have the teams with the lowest opponent goals against average. These teams are playing teams that do not let in a lot of goals, so the players on these teams might struggle this week. We have the Calgary Flames, the Edmonton Oilers, the San Jose Sharks, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now we're going to be talking about the streamers to help you maximize your games. And like I said earlier on, the Blue Jackets have the best schedule this week for that. They have 4 games and 4 off nights. So if you want to maximize your games, these are the players you're definitely going to want to take a look at. We have Boone Jenner, Zach Werenski, Johnny Gaudreau, Patrick Laine, Kirill Marchenko, Adam Fantilli, and Ivan Provorov. Obviously, whether these players are available are going to depend on your league size. But I will say, Kirill Marchenko is available in most of your leagues. I think his roster percentage on Yahoo is around 7 or 8%. Currently, he's getting top 6 minutes, and he's on that first line power play, so he's definitely a diamond in the rough this week. Take a look at him. Gaudreau, I'm expecting to bounce back. Patrick Laine, I'm expecting to bounce back, so these guys could have been dropped. Take a look at them as well. Zach Werenski's underrated. I've talked about him quite a bit in my recent videos, my past videos. Boone Jenner has been on an absolute heater. I do expect him to cool down, but he's a very solid player, getting top 6 minutes on the first line power play. Also puts up great peripherals as well, so great option. Adam Fantilli, he's kind of bouncing back. We're not bouncing back, but bouncing from the first line power play to the second line power play, but he's still getting a decent amount of minutes, and he's a very talented player, so always a good option. And Ivan Provorov has actually been putting up some decent points, good peripherals. Finally, we have their goalie, Elvis. He's getting at least 3 starts this week. So yeah, I mean, he could be a pretty good option. The Blue Jackets are not the greatest team, but I think they could have a decent week and get some wins. So yeah, take a look at Elvis if you're looking to stream a goalie this week. Next up, we have some Rangers players. and there's not too many Rangers players available because they're pretty top heavy at the moment in terms of their ice totals. I want to highlight 3 players here. Vincent Trocheck, he might not be available in most of your leagues because he's been playing amazing lately. He bounced back from a really slow start. He's getting a lot of minutes. He's on the first line power play, puts up great peripherals, so take a look at him if you're in a more shallow league. We also have Erik Gustafsson. This is a diamond in the rough for this week, guys. With Adam Fox still on the IR, Erik Gustafsson is quarterbacking that first line power play, one of the best power plays in the league, so definitely a very solid option for this week. He should rack up a decent amount of points. And then we have Alexis Lafreniere. Not the highest on Lafreniere. He's getting a decent amount of ice time. It's around 16 minutes, but he's not on the first line power play, and his shooting percentage is pretty high, so you could expect a cooldown. Either way, there's not too many deep options on the Rangers, so Alexis Lafreniere could put up some points. He's in the top 6, so he's still a solid option. Then we have some more options here. We have bangers, and what that means is if you're in a league that values shots, hits, and blocks pretty decently, then these guys are great streaming options. Jacob Trouba and Keandre Miller. Then finally, we have some deeper league options. Some of you that watch are in 18-team leagues or 20-team leagues, and these guys could be viable for this week, even though I'm not a huge fan of them. Blake Wheeler and Capo Caco. Their ice time totals are terrible, but still, they could rack up some points, and they might be the best available options on your waiver wire in a deeper league. Next up, we have one player on the San Jose Sharks. They have 3 off nights this week, just like the Rangers, so good for maximizing your games. This one player is Tomas Hertl. This is really the only player that I can recommend to pick up because he is the only fantasy relevant player on the Sharks. Maybe if you're in a category league, a guy like Mario Ferraro, maybe some other guys if you're in a deep league, Kalen Addison, Fabian Zetterlund, but I can't recommend those guys. If you're in a really deep league, check out the Sharks stats and check out their first line power play, but I would say Hertl is probably the best and only option in most leagues. Finally, I just want to talk about some other great streamers. These are players that have 4 games and 2 off nights this week. Pretty solid for maximizing your games, but not as good as players on the Blue Jackets, the Sharks, and the Rangers. However, it does depend on your league size, right? So if you're in a more shallow league, you're not going to be picking up Blake Wheeler over Pavel Zacha because you get one more off night. That's not how that works. So these guys, definitely good options. Let me read this off. We have the Boston Bruins. Obviously, they have 4 games and 2 off nights. Good opponent goals against average. The players on here, we have Pavel Zacha, Charlie Coyle, JVR, and Jake DeBrusk. Zacha and JVR are on the first line power play, so a little more valuable, but all decent options. Next up, we have Colorado Avalanche players. And the first player we have on here is Valeri Nichushkin. He's probably not available in most of your leagues at this point, but his roster percentage on Yahoo is around something like 80%. So if you're in a more shallow league, definitely take a look at him for this week and also long term because I think he's great. Then we have defenseman Devon Taves. Might be available in some of your leagues. Definitely a solid option. Has a chance to put up some decent points. Then we have Jonathan Drouin, and this guy is definitely a diamond in the rough for this week. With Artturi Lehkonen out long-term with an injury, Drouin is currently on the first-line power play. He's getting a decent amount of ice time lately, and he's actually producing. So this is definitely a guy you want to take a look at. The reason he's a diamond in the rough is because his roster percentage is super low, so he definitely is available in most of your leagues. Could be a great stream for this week. Then we have Ross Colton. He's a third-line guy, but he puts up good peripherals, and he's producing, so that's always a good option. And then we have Bowen Byram. This guy could probably get more minutes with Samuel Girard out. He entered the NHL Player Assistance Program, so Byram could definitely have better deployment based off that. Byram's also a guy that I do expect to bounce back, puts up decent peripherals, so yeah, he is a good option as well. Next up, we have Capitals players. John Carlson, still a high roster percentage, around 92%, but in a more shallow league, I suggest taking a look at him. I think he's going to bounce back, and he's getting almost 27 minutes a night. It's the highest of his career. Once his power play gets going, I think Carlson will produce, and he puts up great peripherals as well. So great stream in a shallow league. And we have a diamond in the rough, Evgeny Kuznetsov. Not expecting Kuznetsov to be amazing this year, but I do expect him to bounce back a little bit. His shooting percentage is pretty low. He just returned from an illness. I think he missed 4 or 5 games, and he's on the first line power play. I mean, the first game that he came back, he had 21 minutes. So I think Kuznetsov could be a decent stream for this week. We also have Dylan Strome. He's on the first line power play, getting top 6 minutes. That's pretty solid. And then we have Tom Wilson. With TJ Oshie out with an injury, I don't know how long Oshie is going to be out. Tom Wilson is on the first line power play. So Great option in my opinion. He also puts up very good peripherals, puts up a lot of hits, as you guys know. So Tom Wilson, solid option. Finally, we have some Buffalo Sabres streams. We have Jeff Skinner and Alex Tuck. Great streams in a more shallow league. Probably not available in most of your leagues, but I thought I would include them because their roster percentage has dipped in the last couple of weeks. Then we have two diamonds in the rough, okay? We have Casey Middlestat and JJ Peterka. I think these guys are great streams, and let me tell you why. With Tage Thompson out with an injury, JJ Peterka is on the first line power play. He's producing really well, so definitely a guy you want to take a look at. And Casey Middlestat, even when Tage Thompson was healthy, has been on the first line power play. So this guy's a great stream for this week, and he's a great long-term hold, okay? He's getting almost 20 minutes a night lately, so very good option. Then we have a couple more players. Dylan Cousins, very disappointed with his deployment this season, but he still has the potential to put up points, so take a look at him. And then we have Zach Benson. He's getting around 16 minutes a night lately. He looks pretty good out there, so he could put up some points this week. And then we have Victor Olofsson. He's getting a decent amount of power play time lately, so he could be worth a shot as well. All right, guys, that's the end of the video. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.